Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Real Estate Investing for Cashflow podcast. Our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. Now, our guest for this week's show is real estate development expert Ben Julius. Now, Ben is the founder and CEO of Lionheart Development, a development group based in Toronto, Ontario. Now, originally launched in 2017 under the name A-Game Investments, Ben's business began with flipping houses, short-term rentals, and multi-family homes. However, over the last 3 years, the business has evolved into a strategic land development firm focusing on ground-up condo developments. And so, guys, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ben Julius to the show. Ben, how you doing today?
I'm good, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you here. Excited to pull back the curtain, learn a little bit more about you and your business, and I think more importantly, even you've been doing it now 6 years, but the evolution of what's kind of transpired over these last 6 years. And so, with that, I'll give you a very brief introduction. It surely doesn't encompass the entirety of that last 6 years and what your company's grown into. So maybe let's back up a little bit for those that aren't familiar with you and your story. Maybe give us a little bit more insights there and how you found your way into real estate and what it is you do today.
Sure. So my previous profession, my previous life, I want to call it, because it was all encompassing, was I was a collegiate basketball coach in Canada and the US for a little bit, for about 15 years. And when I came back to Canada, I started my head coaching career. They don't pay coaches. And, we would get through a season and I wouldn't be paid in the off season because it was contract work. And I loved every second of it. I still do love coaching. I think it's a passion that has transitioned me into real estate. And I've taken a lot of those philosophies from coaching and I've moved them over to my real estate business. So I lost my coaching job midway through the season. I had a falling out with the administration and they just didn't really care about winning. They just didn't really care about basketball at all. They just didn't really care about winning or anything involving excellence. And I just kind of wanted to go a different direction. So we had a miscommunication, falling out, and I came home, moved back across the country. And if it wasn't for my parents, I would have been homeless. They took me in, they helped me get back on my feet. I was in a really bad place in 2015, in Christmas 2015. Met my wife, my now wife. I met her a couple months later and she really pulled me out of a dark place. She, kind of grew flowers in the darkest part of me, as they like to say, and allowed me to really kind of get into a different environment. And she pushed me into real estate. We were driving in a car one day and we're like, I was doing a sales job. I was coaching high school on the side. They just really I wasn't happy. And she saw it in me. She, God bless her, because she saw something in me that I didn't know was there at that time, because I didn't have any passion left. Everything was stripped out of me. And she saw me in this sales role, and she, I wasn't happy doing sales. I was successful because I like to do everything. I go at it hard, right? I get obsessive. I do things, but I did not like the fact that every month had to be better than the last month. And it just became stress I just didn't like. And I realized I was putting money in somebody else's pocket. So we're driving down on the highway, hear something on the radio. She's like, you always talk about real estate. You always talk about the power of, if you had a student rental, you wouldn't have had to fork out so much money in school, or your players could have, paid for rent and you could have owned the house. You just never did it. So let's go check this out. So I thought it was a network marketing thing. I get there and was like, let's get out of here. She says, no, we're staying. And then we did a 3-day course with them. And this was all smaller multifamily stuff. And then when we joined a group, and once I joined the group, I really learned the power of leverage and what leverage can do. So then I took all my coaching skills and I applied it directly to my real estate business. And our first purchase was a turnkey duplex. I say turnkey because nothing's ever turnkey when you buy it. There's always stuff to do. So we really got our feet wet with that. And then from there, we went into conversions where we would add units we would add basement suites and started creating cash flow and doing these different things. And then by 2019, I was able to, in a short 3 years, right, we got into real estate in 2 years, really. got into real estate. By the time we got through all the coursework and purchased our first property was 2017. And so from 2017 and 2019, I was working sales jobs, coaching, doing different things while doing real estate, really burning out. And then 2019, we made the decision that this is it. We're going to go full time. And we really scaled very, very quickly. But we realized that being a landlord in Ontario is very much like being a landlord in California. You don't have very much rights. And so much so that people were not paying rent, and we wouldn't be able to get them out of our unit for 12 months. So they get to live for free. And, as any real estate investor knows, that you never own these properties outright. So as soon as somebody stops paying rent, or two people stop paying rent in a smaller, anything below 5 units, you really start to feel it.
Yeah.
So then our whole goal was to get enough doors to have our own property management company and work things out, so that we'd always have somebody around going to check on every site once a week and really maintaining the stuff properly. And that's how we kind of got into development, because we were able to pick up a building that I was going to convert to 13 doors that ended up being a teardown, because it just structurally was falling apart, wasn't sound. I got it for a really good deal. And then there was a vacant piece of land 2 parcels over. So we picked up that one because we were be able to put 40 units ground up. And then my architect decided to just plant a seed in my head and say, why don't you pick up the 2 in the middle, and then you can go up really high and do this. And, condos are selling for this. And that was really how we got into it, very organically. And for me, it was a challenge. But I found that I really enjoyed managing that team. And that's what I really missed from coaching, was the camaraderie of, like you're starting a team, like you're between your architects, we call them urban planners up here, not land use lawyers, which it's the same thing. And we, managing them, managing your construction management team, managing all these people, it's really allowed me to get back into that. Okay, I'm the head coach role, the drug of that power and the head coach that you have, that it's really tough to relinquish. And I was able to kind of take those philosophies and merge them to now we have, 3 major developments, about to close on a 4th one down in your neck of the woods. We're over now $300 million under management right now.
That's fantastic. No, I appreciate that. And we're going to dissect that a little bit, because I feel like we skipped over probably some pretty critical timelines there. So, obviously bought the first, the turnkey duplex, and then you bought some other conversion units where you maybe took a smaller multifamily, built out a basement, added another unit or 2. And I guess the missing link for me is where that connects. You kind of, you expand upon a little bit of where all that prior experience with a few just like smaller investments expanded to, really diving into ground up development. I mean, it's a night and day difference. It's a completely different business model. Many more complexities, a lot more, I guess just different types of risk associated with ground up developments, and different players involved. You mentioned architects. So even that, like, just what comes to mind immediately, like the question is, at what point, did you start assembling the team? Because typically just doing smaller deals, like you don't get architects involved a lot of times, unless maybe when you were building out some of those, basements and things like that, you might have brought an architect in, but a lot of times probably not, or maybe, I don't know, I'm wrong, but I guess I'm trying to pull the pieces together, because it's going from just small scale to a couple $100 million worth of ground up developments. It seems like a fairly quick and far flung trajectory, which is great. I want to piece it together for those that are listening. That's all.
Sure. So I skipped a couple of acquisitions in between there, right? So we went from basement conversions to triplex conversion to fourplex conversion to a fiveplex conversion. So it all kind of happened. We were growing. And then it was, through that growth, we met other people. Like we met, some mentors, we met some architects, because when we got to the 5 unit, we needed to kind of expand and look at an architect. And then it was when from the 5 unit conversion to the 13 unit conversion, that's when it really blew the lid off of everything.
Gotcha.
What I mean by that is that's when you had to take a step back, and now, you're looking at the foundation of the building. You're hiring an engineer to go through, you got to get soil samples, you got to do all these different things. So you're starting the preliminary process of a development. You have to get a survey, you have to do a site plan, all these different things. And it was just like, these are the same things that needed to be done to do a significant development. Obviously the significant development are more detailed and more in depth, but we started that process. So that learning game was there. And then we just kind of parlayed it into some different things. And one of the things that I think is important for everybody to understand right now is that there is from 3 years ago, for the next decade, there's a major transfer of wealth here that is happening as the baby boomers exit life. I know it's a morbid thing to say, but they're not as healthy as our generation, so they're not living as long as we are. They didn't focus on their bodies and their mental health like we did, or we've been taught to. Some do, some don't. So they are wanting to retire, and if they're able to go enjoy the remainder of their life, they will. But some just keep working. But there's a major transfer of wealth going on here, and that's really how we picked up some of these properties and good deals. Is I got one that it's a $40 million margin on the property, and the guy is just like, he's 78 years old. He's like, I don't want to deal with the city anymore. So yeah, give me this amount of money and I'm out the door. And okay. And that was really because of a conversation that I had with his brother. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's funny that, I've been to a ton of networking events, and when I go to networking events, most of the time it's people who are, young guys, young women who are trying to get into the game, and they're looking for money and stuff like that. But I met these guys at a local coffee shop, right? Just hear them talking and, make a joke. And all of a sudden now I sit down and have a coffee with them. And that really led to some major acquisition. So I always like to tell people, when I was coaching, I would tell my players, you never know who's around you. You never know who you're going to apply for the job. So you need to watch your language, speak with, passion, and really understand that this world is so small and everything is interconnected, and you have no idea where your next deal is coming from, and you have no idea where you're going to find a deal. I always say in development and even at lower stages of real estate that good deals aren't found, they're made. And they're made through like certain relationships and being able to just talk. I mean, I've been fortunate that I've been a public speaker for many years, being a coach, right? You go speak at camps, you go speak at, graduations and different things. So I'm not shy talking to people. And I think that as technology kind of rapidly moves forward, that we're losing some of this gift of the gab, as I like to say. So people who have it are going to do very well. People who don't, they're going to struggle to create wealth, because I can't even begin to tell you that majority of my capital raising, the majority of my deals done, they're not done. They're done through me creating certain relationships.
That's right. Absolutely. It's not just drop an email out and all of a sudden a couple $1 million shows up in your bank account, right? I mean, these are personalized relationships that you've taken time, energy, and effort to establish over a period of time, and it surely doesn't happen overnight. And again, I agree with you. Just the a couple of generations younger than us. I've got a guy. He's a guy now. He's 20 years old, but I'm in a Big Brothers Big Sisters program. I have been for 10 years, and I started mentoring this boy at the time named Caleb. And it was interesting. The first couple year or two that we were together, I would always like kind of push him out of his comfort zone a lot of times. And one of his comfort zones, I realized shortly after we met, was actually verbally communicating, not necessarily with me, but with anybody else, like any in a store or over the telephone. And I remember I share the story because I think it ties directly in with your point of just effective communication. Is we were driving, we went to go play some ball and some basketball. We were just going to go to local Y. He was a member of, And I said, well, hey, I'm not going to drive 20 minutes down there. So why don't you call first and just see how late the court's open? And number two, see if anyone's on the court, right? Because if it's open, but yeah, they've got, they're running a couple full games. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going there. Let's go somewhere else. And so another 2 minutes go by, I'm driving. I'm like, you going to dial the phone? What are you going to do? So anyway, I dialed the number. I was at a red light, handed my phone to him, and I could hear the conversation. A lady on the other end picked up. Hi, this is the Suncoast YMCA. And he didn't say anything. How can I help you? He didn't say anything. And I said, ask her how late they're open. And he asked her the question. She answered, and then he paused again. He didn't know what to say. He literally didn't know how to communicate with her over the phone. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And I literally had to like coach him through the conversation of just really finding out those two key data points. Number one, are they open? Yeah. And number two, is that court open? And I found that after that point in time, I realized that he would always text me, and every time he would text me, instead of me responding back via text, which was kind of the immediate default, I would just call him. And it drove him crazy. It really got him uncomfortable. But now I feel like over years of doing that, I've seen him really evolve and grow as an individual, and kind of get back to a little bit of that old school, communication as well. Just like, again, I'm his parents' age, but I feel like it's a lost art. And I don't know, and I'm trying to focus at it. I've got two boys, 6 and 9, and we tried to limit the technology in their face, the video games, and them chatting, sitting with their friends in a room together. They're all hanging out together, but they're all on their own electronics. I'm like, what is happening here? This doesn't play out well in the long run. And you're losing that basic art of communication. And it's so critical to, I think, just overall success in one's life. So with that, not to kind of beat the dead horse there, but no, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. And I just wanted to share a little funny story there.
Oh, it's
as it
great.
Relates to just lack of communication, how much it exists nowadays. And so, I want to get a better understanding. Let's talk about the business model, right? Like we're talking about ground up developments, but more specifically, what is it that you guys focus in?
So, across North America, in any urban area, there's a major shortage in supply, right? Like you have houses going up for sale. You see for sale signs all the time, but at the end of the day, a lot of these places are for sale for a high number, but they also need significant dollars to be livable or inhabitable the way that you want them. So what we've decided to do is we kind of took our focus and we said, where is this? There's a gap in the market here in Canada, especially, where affordability is becoming unattainable for this generation coming through to the workforce. I can tell you right now, in the city that we live in, just outside of Toronto, 1,100 square foot home is $700,000 and still needs $150,000 of work to become modern and to not have wallpaper and shag carpet and those things. So we have a major affordability gap in our country. So what we've done is I went out and I was really looking, trying to make our I don't want to say make our performer work, because it always works, but it was, where can we differentiate ourselves in our marketplace? Because we have a lot of condominiums that are being built in our area. Everything's going up because we can't go out. We're sandwiched between the Great Lakes and a major green belt environmental protected area. So the only place that we can and we have 1 million people coming into our country a year, and they come to this area. So what are we going to do? We're going to go up. However, how are we going to do that properly and not pay, somebody's not going to pay $900,000 for a 700 square foot to 1,000 square foot condo, right? Mm-hmm. So, because condos have just gone from this big to this big to this big to this big, right? So,
and what's the average price per foot of a condo in the markets that you're building? Like right now, ones that are already out of the ground that are for sale, what's the average price per foot?
So when they launch in Toronto, they're launching anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a square foot.
Wow.
Yeah. So
is that Canadian or US?
It's Canadian. So like $5 US. No, I'm just kidding. So that's US. I mean, sorry, that's Canadian. So in our market, we're 45 minutes out of downtown Toronto. So we're launching at about $10,500 to $1,200 a square foot, depending on your location and your finishes, right? And depending on what's going to go on with the market. We're going to get hit a little bit harder in the next little bit than the US, because especially in the housing district, because what you guys down in the US, you have 30-year mortgages. We also have that up here, but it's 5-year renewals. So there's like $300 billion that needs to be in mortgages that need to be renewed in the next 2 years.
Interesting. They all reset the current rates.
Yep. Yeah. So people are like tightening up, right? Tightening up. So
yeah,
we do 5.
That's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the what's the crystal ball say about, how detrimental that's going to be to the housing market there?
So our banking system is a little bit different than yours. We don't have community banks. We don't have a lot of banks. We have 5 major banks in Canada. And there's obviously what we call B lenders, institutional, secondary lenders. We have quite a bit of those, but everything is really secured by our major banks.
Backed, right?
Yeah.
Government backed. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is
they're probably required. I mean, if someone can't afford, if they're at a 3% rate and the reset comes and now it's 7% rate and their debt to income is short or what, I'm sure that they probably are they going to at risk of foreclosure, or is the bank required to actually create a program for them?
They're not required, but they have. So what they've done is they just created longer amortizations. So they've gone from 25 to 30 years. I've seen 50 years. I saw somebody post. Yeah, I saw somebody post a 75-year AM. So I don't know how that's happened. I don't know if somebody's making that up via digital or whatever, but that's what they're doing. They're just extending the AM to kind of keep people's payments within their budgets. So that really sparked us. Like, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at our launch dates, I'm looking at everything else, and I'm sitting here saying, okay, we need to do something that's appealing. So I found this company called Ori Living out of New York, and they create expandable living systems. So we're able to essentially take a 350 square foot condo, and it operates as a 700 square foot 1-bedroom den. We also price it a little bit higher than a normal 350 square foot. It's about 30% higher in terms of square footage. So just to essentially cover the cost of the system, but it takes a single room and it goes from a the bed goes up, and now you have an entertainment area. Your entertainment center will move, and then you have a home office within your entertainment area. In your bedroom, you also have a walk-in closet that is significantly bigger than any closet you'll find in a studio apartment. So we're trying to kind of maximize our efficiencies, but also give people what they want, what they can afford. So I have one of my, you talked about you were, mentoring you're in the Big Brother program for 10 years, which is fantastic, by the way. I hired one of my former players as an operations manager for me. He's a 23-year-old new grad. And he's like, oh, I would live in this, no problem. And he's excited because he can afford it. He can afford to get into it. So, those are kind of the people. Like, when I came out of school, houses were significantly cheaper. I mean, didn't have that mindset. I wish I did, but I didn't. So being able to afford something right out of university or college, I think it's very empowering for somebody. And I think home ownership creates so many different levels of dedication to your area, to your economy, directly putting money into your own economy versus, everybody, the next generation, they want to get up and leave. Well, how do you have them stay, but also have that ability to go? And that's condo living. They don't want to go cut grass. They don't want to shovel snow. They don't want to do these things. I know you don't shovel snow down there, Kevin, but man, we get a lot up here sometimes. So, yeah, but they don't want to do those things. They don't want to take care of the property. They just want to be able to come home, have their space, and go. Okay, well, let's market to that. And that's kind of what we've done. And it's enabled us to take one building from 91 units and go to 132. It's enabled us to go from 111 to 145, while increasing and this is the best part, it increases the revenue for our investors. And we talk about cash flow. You want real estate investing for cash flow. That's what we create. We create cash flow for people, not necessarily on a monthly basis, but our returns are giving, 18% IRR every year. We pay them out at the end of a project, but they're getting 50 to 60% on their money.
Well, have you considered, these are obviously build for sale developments, and any consideration to built for rent type projects with a similar concept?
Not in Ontario. We will market them to individual investors to purchase and put them back into the rental pool. We've dabbled back and forth with it, but the cost of construction is so high that we won't be able to get our valuation to where it needs to get to and get our money out for our investors. Because we are I'm not a big developer. I don't go 30 stories. I stick within a niche of 8 to 12. So kind of in that mid-rise range. So we don't get the economies of scale. So our cost per square foot to build is just a tad bit higher than if you're going up all 30 stories, right?
Mm-hmm. What are the capital markets like currently in Canada? And has the last year and a half, have you guys seen similar fluctuations and volatility like we have here in the U.S. with regards to interest rates and just lending kind of putting on the brakes a little bit?
Oh yeah, so it's making
so how are you guys managing that? I mean, that's a challenge, I think, in anyone's business. Probably even more so on the construction development side.
So we're not here's the thing. So we don't see any institutional lending on land. They won't lend on vacant land right now. So you really got to get creative with your financing. So what we've done is on all of our projects, at some point in time, we've had seller financing hold a massive chunk of it. And it's really allowed us to kind of go through the process to get to construction financing or get close to construction financing. But we won't get institutional lending. Like our 5 major banks, they won't touch these projects. So we're doing alternative lenders, essentially, is what we're saying. So how we do it is we set up a GP LP model. For those listeners who don't know, that is a general partnership and a limited partnership, and investors can buy into the limited partnership, and the general partnership that then runs the project and does everything and the LP just sits there and collects money on their money. So at the end of the project, they get paid out 50-50, just like the GPL. Our split is a 50-50 split on multiple projects. So, if the project produces $20 million, the LP is going to get 10. And if we have 10 investors in that, they each going to get $1 million on their money. It's pretty good.
What's like the typical time frame, to get to actual lease up, stage, or I guess sales, not lease up, but sales stage, and then ultimately what's the absorption rate projected as far as once these things are ready to start selling?
So basically, I always tell people we're about a 5-year window, right? From the point where
beginning to end.
Yes, beginning to end. Okay. So it takes about 2 years to get it fully approved, a year to a year and a half to get it fully approved. Mm-hmm. I always say plan for 2 years, and then you have a year pre-planning for construction, and then 2 years construction, and 6 months for occupancy and other little things that are going to happen. So, we will launch. We're smaller boutique builds, so I want to launch our pre-sales 90 days out from construction, from breaking ground. And because we have things up here that have launched 2 years ago that haven't broken ground because of the interest rates, because of labor shortage, because of different things. So if we can kind of like everybody always wants to know, how do you mitigate risk in development? This is one of the reasons to do that. You don't have a long period between your pre-sales and your construction. So now your budgets are kind of in line. They're not fluctuating as much, and we'll do 75% pre-sales, and these will sell very quickly. So our absorption rate will be, I don't know. I don't foresee us having to go longer than a month on our pre-sales.
Wow. Are there other similar concepts, I guess in your marketplace? I mean, or is it, and the reason where that question is coming from is, Is this going to be a matter, this concept that you guys are building, is it going to be, are you going to have to spend a lot of emphasis on educating the consumer on what it is and how it's different than the norm? Or are there other concepts? Is it, readily available, maybe not your exact, product type, but like these almost like micro units? Is this
Hmm.
a common concept in your marketplace?
I wouldn't say it's a common concept. I think there's been a couple other developers who have offered this system, the exact same system, same company, but they've offered them as upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Where we are making our bachelors completely, we call it studios bachelors, completely outfitted with this system, three pieces of this system. So we will be the first to kind of set that bar. And there are other pieces out there. We are building a significant showroom on one of the properties to show consumers. It's very intuitive. It's very easy. It's literally the press of a button. But yeah, so I feel like this is the way that they're going to have to go, because once one is in place, a lot to follow. I'm not big on, we have launches here. Oh, I'm a Louis Vuitton design building. Cool. I don't want a Louis Vuitton handbag. What am I going to do with that? My wife wouldn't want a Louis Vuitton handbag. So I'm not going to it's not going to entice me to spend $350,000 to $400,000 on a condo just to get, I live in a Louis Vuitton building. We don't want to do that. So we are right on a transit line. That's one of the things we do with our developments. We look at location, 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 location. So both of our condo developments right now are on transit lines. Light rail transit lines. One is a commuter train into downtown Toronto, and the other is a city-wide LRT line that is being built. So we really want to focus on that young professional who is into technology, whose life revolves around technology. So I don't think the learning curve, in fact, listen, I went to New York. I took my team of architects, my construction management team. We went to their factory, we went to their warehouse, we went to their show apartment, and it was literally a press of a button. That's it. And it's all pressure sensitive. So, like the biggest question we ask is, well, if your wife's mad at you, is she going to drop the bed on you, or, lock you in the closet or the entertainment center or whatever. So it's all like, as soon as it's all weighted electronically, and if it senses weight that's not there, or touch it, you press it, it'll stop and go the other direction. As well as, the one nice thing is, the question we always get is, well, what is it? How does it have to be built into the system? Well, it's all aftermarket. It takes less than a hair dryer. So you just plug it in. We're designing our building around it. So our stuff is going to be in the proper places. But if power goes out, what are you going to do? If your bed is up in the air and you want to go to sleep, what are you going to do? There's also manual overrides that you just can pull it right down and you're good. Everything can be moved
They're going to
manually.
say get a ladder, get a ladder, or get a
Right?
trampoline.
Totally. That'd be a fun night. I know
Sleep
my
on the
son
floor.
tried it.
No.
My son, I got a 3-year-old. He's crazy. My 1-year-old's just as crazy as him. So they would both be hanging off and trying to go up. It wouldn't move. It wouldn't do that, because the pressure weighted would be different. So yeah, that's kind of, we're hoping. I know that, sometimes new is always skeptical, right? So I think that's the one thing we're going to battle, is people's perception of, it's not normal, I don't want it. We just have to make it normal.
Yeah,
That's
no,
all.
fantastic. Well, no, I appreciate it, Ben. This has been a fun interview, and definitely it's a concept I was not familiar with, and in fact, I'll dig after we hang up here. I'd love to
Yeah.
see what it looks like, what the system's like. Um, I'm sure there's some YouTube videos out there, maybe somewhere in the world, that has a similar concept. But no, I appreciate your time here. So for those that want to learn more, I guess, about your company, the projects that you guys have working, where's the best place for them to track you down?
Best place is, my Instagram handle is Coach Ben Julius. And then my website is lionheartdevelopment.co. So CO. That's kind of where the best way to find me. My personal contact information is on there. I'm always open for a conversation, phone call, email, whatever. I like the sound of my own voice, so I have no problem talking to anybody.
Well, fantastic. Well, we appreciate you coming here, Ben. It's been a lot of fun having you, and yeah, looking forward to following your progress.
I appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you for having me, man.
Alrighty, guys, that's all we have for this week's show. So until we meet again next week, this is your host, Kevin Bupp, wishing you huge success. Take care now.